right, Devin McCourty is here. He is Football Night in America star. He's calling games starting this Thursday for Westwood One. He works with a surprisingly jacked Chris Sims. I don't know what Chris Sims is doing. He told me he's doing CrossFit or something like that. Yeah, CrossFit. Chris Sims is jacked now, but Devin McCourty is no slouch either. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Yeah, Simsy, he's been getting after it on the CrossFit. I told him better him than me because I can't mess with the CrossFit.
All right. Well, we'll see how that develops over the course of the year. I want to start here. Your old team, the New England Patriots. You know Jerod Mayo really, really well. The one thing we found out, maybe you already knew this, but the one thing we found out is that the new Patriots are going to play their ass off for Jerod Mayo, and we've seen that the first 2 weeks. And I loved the slogan of "Take them to that hill" because you know what the hill is, and I've told the listeners what the hill is. It's basically sprints up a hill in Foxborough. It means that they're going to be better conditioned. They're going to play as hard as anybody else in this league. What have you seen from the first 2 weeks from this new era of the Patriots?
I think it's exactly what you said, and I think the thing and the key with this team is they stick to the game plan. What they come in with, what they talk about all week in practice, you can see they're going out there and they're trying to execute those things as an offense. In week one, you could tell they said, we're going to run the ball against Cincinnati. They came out and did it. They knew it would set up some of the play action for week 2 against Seattle. You saw Hunter Henry had a big game. So they're going to keep working. I think the thing for this team is they know their margin of error is small. They can't make mistakes. They can't give up plays. So they're going to have to continue to build on that throughout the season. But I love it because, myself, Jerod Mayo, we played for Coach Belichick. Coach Belichick created that hill. We had a lower field and an upper field and a parking lot in between. He went one day to the field crew and he was like, why can't we just make a hill that connects them? And ever since then, they've been running those hills. So I love hearing the guys talk about that because that's what hard work is. And that's when it pays off in the fourth quarter of those games.
The funniest thing, Devin, is that you'd be in the locker room or the media area after the Super Bowl, and I covered 3 of the wins, I believe, and in each one, there were new players saying, I thought the hill was kind of a joke, but now it's January, it's February, and thank God we're running those hills. I think Edelman joked about it a little bit. I think Michael Bennett at one point joked about it. Everybody gets to understand why the conditioning is the way it is and why Belichick does those sort of things. I think at some point, guys maybe process a little high school Harry or something like that. It matters.
Yeah, exactly. And, when Jerod first took over, everyone kept saying he's a player coach, he's this, he's that. Yeah. I'm like, this guy played his whole NFL career under Bill Belichick. Did he coach under Bill Belichick? Trust me, he's a hard-nosed football player, middle linebacker. He believes in hard work, and you can see the team is taking on after him. And, I think the cool thing is those guys in that locker room, they love playing for him, and you can see that with this team. And hopefully they continue to build and build throughout the season, and they end up being better than a lot of people thought. I mean, even better than I thought coming into the season. So it's fun to see.
Curious, I did my monologue on this, but obviously defensive back play and defense as well as anybody in media. And I'm curious what you've seen from defenses over the first 2 weeks that have made the young quarterbacks' lives miserable. Because across the board, with the exception of CJ Stroud, who's the exception to everything, it seems like everybody under about the age of 25 is really struggling with these defenses. And I'm curious what you've seen and where that comes from.
Yeah, I think the defenses are now so multiple. They're able to do so many different things. And then you look at some of these players now. You mentioned Houston. You look at a guy like Jalen Petrie. You look at Baltimore with a guy like Kyle Hamilton. They have all of these players that they're safeties, but they're kind of corners, kind of linebackers. Kyle Duggar in New England. So coaches now are like, hey, let's use these guys. Let's be in a man-to-man defense, but let's put, this guy matched up on a running back instead of a tight end, or let's look like we're a man and drop out to cover 2 or to cover. So all of these defenses look so different. And that's some of the base defenses we're not even talking about now, like Houston last night, Sunday Night Football. They added, 5-man pressure, sending 5 guys more than they usually ever do. So for these young quarterbacks, you study all week. This is what this team does week after week. And then the NFL, whatever you practice that week, you can go and execute in the game, and you see that. So these young quarterbacks, they'll get used to it. You heard Mahomes say this year, even if he doesn't study for a certain defense that week, it's not a part of the game plan. He's already seen it before. He doesn't worry. He knows he'll get used to it. He'll adjust. These young quarterbacks, they haven't built that up yet. They'll continue to build it up, and you'll see them really start to take off. You saw Burrow do it this week a totally different game from week one for him in week two, because he's now seen a lot of defenses and knows how to execute.
We need to talk about Brian Flores, who I don't know if you saw the clip, but Brock Purdy goes up after the game and says, your game plan was crazy. He's like the most aggressive guy in football right now. And one thing, and I was talking to a couple people this morning about it, one thing about Flo and what he's built there in Minnesota, the 2-0 Minnesota Vikings, is that he knows not only what scheme to run, but he went out and signed a bunch of guys who fit his system to a T. Andrew Van Ginkel, guys like that. This feels like something special maybe on the defensive side of the ball in Minnesota.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is the way he left Miami had people thinking about the way he treated guys. And I ran into Harrison Phillips in the offseason, defensive tackle for the Vikings, and he was like, Flo should be a head coach. Like, he went on and on and on about Brian Flores, the coach and the man, and obviously spent a lot of time with him. And what I love about his scheme is once you get to know him, it's him. It's aggressive. It's punch you in the face. He has that New York style of, I'm going to be here. We're going to make it hard for you. 2018, when he was our coordinator in New England, that's what we did. It was a lot of blitz zero. It was man-to-man. It was in your face. And Minnesota now, and I think his time in Pittsburgh, he talked about, even with the Pittsburgh Panthers, of spending time with Narduzzi, the head coach of the Panthers, and talking about different schemes. And then obviously the schemes with Mike Tomlin of now it's not just in your face, man-to-man. It's pressure with cover two behind it, with zone. Like, it's so many different things. And you can tell Brock Purdy probably all week spent a lot of time on all these different looks, and then got to the game on Sunday, and it was some brand new looks he still didn't see. And that's the joy of playing in a Brian Flores defense.
What impressed you specifically scheme-wise, what they did to Purdy yesterday?
I think it's the same thing. It's the switch up. It's not allowing quarterbacks to get comfortable. It's saying, hey, we're going to send, and that's what Flo does more than anybody. We're going to send max blitz. We're going to send 6 guys at you. And then maybe 2 third downs later, you're getting ready. They're coming for you. Then he sends max coverage. He only sends 3 guys, and he drops a bunch of guys. So he does that better than anybody. It's hard to game plan for. And once you get in the game, sometimes it's a little too late of once you kind of figure it out. And, credit to him, because it's not just Purdy. It's also confusing Kyle Shanahan, who has proven to be one of the best offensive minds in the game.
Biggest surprise in the NFL to you through 2 weeks? Could be anything, could be a player, could be a team. The thing you're going, whoa, I did not see this coming is what?
It's got to be Baltimore. Baltimore right now to be 0-2. I think, losing to Kansas City week 1, I don't think that was a big deal to a lot of people, but you go and you lose to the Raiders in week 2, and then this crazy stat comes out that you've lost more games than any team in the NFL in the last 3 years when up by 7 or 10 points. Like, that is ridiculous, because this team has the formula of a quarterback who can run this very good run game over these last few years. You're like, they should put games away better than anybody. So I think that's the biggest surprise. And it's even more of a surprise because of what they have going forward. The Bills, the Cowboys, they have some tough games in front of them.
Yeah, I was stunned by that. And also it's funny because obviously it's a little bit of a misleading stat because you have to be up in a bunch of games in order to blow them. Obviously, if the Panthers are up 7 at the start of the fourth quarter all the time, they probably have more than 10 blown leads over the past 4 years. But is there something you can point your finger to with why that team, and you mentioned it, they're so good at running the ball. They normally have a better offensive line than this. We'll see what happens with the interior offensive line. But like, is there something you could point to where it's like they just seem to not be able to close when they have to?
I think over the years, when that happens over and over again, that's not just players. That's something that they have to do as a staff and as a team to determine, all right, we're letting our foot off the gas. That's what because I'm sure if we went and broke down all of those games, it's something different that falls short all throughout the game. But it's a mentality of they're not finishing the game. You said it. They're playing well enough to be ahead. So you're not executing and doing those things. Maybe it's key third downs. Maybe it's 2-minute situations. Maybe it's just situational football. How do you get better? I would say this year offensively, they need to figure out an identity. Right now, they're too basic. It's too easy. Teams know when Justice Hill comes in the game, get ready for the pass, get ready for spread out formations. When Derrick Henry comes in the game, be ready. Even if it's 3 receivers, he's going to be behind Lamar Jackson. Get ready for run. And you can see Defensive personnels are switching out. You can see the way they're calling it is different. So they have to figure out how they want to play as an offense, what's going to be productive, because when you're ahead and you get in those key situational moments, you want that all 11 guys on the field to know we're going to our bread and butter. This is what we're going to do. This is who we are. And I think they haven't found that yet.
You mentioned situational football. Nobody's better in the history of the sport at situational football than your old coach, Bill Belichick. I'm curious, we're talking about young quarterbacks, and I used to say, and other people have said a variation of this, that you're not a veteran quarterback in this league until you play Bill Belichick's defense, because there were guys that, they have 5 good games, they get the Patriots on the schedule. He would make those players look like children. He would throw things that them they'd never seen before. I'm curious if you can take me back to a game with a young quarterback where Bill Belichick, like if you just say Bill Belichick made this guy's life so hard, what quarterback are you taking me to?
I mean, there's a lot of them. We had games against Sam Darnold, who looks really good right now. Obviously, everyone talks about Zach Wilson, but I'll go one where we played Tim Tebow, and I think it was maybe 2012, maybe whatever year it was, where they went to Pittsburgh and they won in overtime. 2011, and we played them in a divisional round, and just everything we did, playing free safety, it turned into a game where instead of like reading the overall formation, it was like, hey, let's find the guards and see if they're firing off. That's going to be run. Let's just go. And you never want to play like that in the NFL. It's way too aggressive, but it was just a different game plan for what Tebow did well, what Denver was doing well. So just the way that, I get frustrated when I watch some of these games as a defense, because I came up under Bill. So it was all about, what is the offensive strengths? All right, it might not be the most sound football thing to do, but against this team, it'll work because this is their strength. Let's go do it. And I watch and I see other teams, like you play against Devontae Adams, and Devontae Adams had a big game against Baltimore. And I come in and I'm just like, if we just don't let Devontae Adams beat us and make them go to somebody else, maybe it gives us a chance. We'll do something that we never do. And I think that's why Bill and his defenses were so hard for people, because you couldn't find it on film. You didn't know it was coming. And, our battles with Kansas City, with Tyreek Hill, one game we would double them every single play. They would always adjust. That's why, to me, Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches of all time, because he would adjust like that and have a new scheme. But that's what I think makes it so hard for those young quarterbacks.
That's fascinating. It's you mentioned taking a guy away, and Belichick did it so often, like Marshall Faulk in the Super Bowl 22 years ago, whatever. But like, I remember there was a game, I'm sure you were playing in it. Jimmy Graham had like the tight end record for yardage for like ever. Like he was the first tight end to have 100 yards in 5 straight games, something like that. Belichick, I believe, put a Aqib Talib on him. I don't think. I didn't notice Jimmy Graham. I didn't know if Jimmy Graham was playing that game. Okay. Like it was over. It was the big comeback game, but like Belichick was so good at that. It's easier said than done. When you mention someone like Devontae Adams, if you're saying, okay, we're not going to let Devontae Adams beat us, what defensively does that mean?
It just means you do, like, I'll give different examples. My second year in the NFL, we played against the Chargers, and they had Antonio Gates, unbelievable tight end, but they also had Malcolm Floyd and Vincent Jackson. And Bill was like, you know what? This all revolves around Antonio Gates and what he can do and how to get set up different things. So we decided, how do you take him away? We put a defensive end over top of him. The defensive end's job was to hit him on every play before anything else he did. If it was a run, good, you hit him and you set the edge. If it's a pass, you hit him and then you pass rush. Then the linebacker took him and the safety double teamed him. So we essentially put 3 guys on Antonio Gates. But when you look at a defensive game plan, you say 3-on-1 sets up a lot of different mismatches in the game. And Vincent Jackson had a big game. I was covering him, so I know firsthand he had a big game, but it forced the Chargers to do things that they necessarily didn't want to do in the game. It made them one-dimensional, and that changed the game. And like I spoke about with Tyreek Hill, we took our middle field safety, who's supposed to be there reading the quarterback, take away any big plays that might happen. We said, you know what? We're going to play this whole game. Everybody else on the field has no help, and we're going to just double team Tyreek Hill. And when you look at that, again, not sound, not how you're supposed to play football, but it made it really hard for Kansas City in the first half for Mahomes to know where to go, what to do. Now, the second half, they came out blazing in the AFC Championship game in 2018. They figured some things out, but it gave us enough of a cushion to ultimately walk away with that game. And that's the things, to me, when you're playing for different coaches and they figure out, like a Brian Flores you spoke about, They're figuring out, how do we take advantage of this team that we're playing this week? When you're a player and your coach comes in and he tells you something that sounds crazy and you go out and you execute and it works, you trust that coach more than anything. Of like, hey, we trust this staff and the plan that they're going to come up with is going to win us this game this week. We'll worry about next week. But for this week, we love our plan.
I love that. And that was Belichick. He'd always come in. I don't know if you've ever heard the story that when they were playing the Bills in the Super Bowl with the Giants, he came in the room and said, we're going to let Thurman Thomas have 100 yards. And, you know how much a defensive line would pride themselves on keeping, especially in that era. And he was like, nope, we're going to do it. And they went crazy. And guess what? They won because they were going to let Thurman do his thing, take away the passing game. I mean, it's just that he's the greatest mind of all time.
That sounds like when we used to play Peyton Manning. You got to let them run the ball. We can't get Peyton Manning one-on-ones. And if they run for 200 yards, it's not going to be pretty, but we just got to win. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Well, here at Omaha Productions, we root for Peyton Manning in all situations, whether that's podcasting or on the field there. I will do some rapid fire. Outside of football, the most competitive arena you are with your brother. Like, what is it? Hoops? Is it video games? Like, what is the McCourty twins' competitive outlet outside of football against each other?
I mean, now it would be media stuff, whatever we're doing. We try to be better than the other one. But growing up, it was video games and one-on-one basketball. We would do that for hours, and it wouldn't end pretty between us two. My mom usually was a decision maker and the ultimate judge who would tell us she'll hurt both of us if we don't stop.
Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. We do something called Badasses. It's the biggest badass you've ever been around in football. Probably someone in the Patriots organization, but you can go back to Rutgers if you'd like. Doesn't matter. The way I sort of define it is alien comes down and says, take me to a football player. You're taking him to who? Who's the badass?
Vince Wilfork. I don't even have to think about it. It's Big Vince. No doubt about it.
Tell me a Wilfork story that defines his badassery.
So 2011, I think it was, we're in training camp, and, training camp is heated. It's offense versus defense. Yep. You're not into playing and realizing you're a team yet. And we had fights just going back to back. Played with Brandon Spikes, who was like a menace on knocking heads off in practice. So we have like 3 fights in a row each day. And Bill comes in. Bill's not one of those coaches. I think it gets talked about a lot of coaches like fighting in practice. Bill wasn't like that. He felt like if you can't fight in a game, don't fight in practice. So he comes to us and he says, hey, any more fights, we're just going to run for the whole practice. And Vince comes in the huddle. He goes, bring it in. Everybody bring it in. I'm telling you mofos right now, anybody else fight, soon as you finish that fight, you're going to fight me after. Not a single fight for the rest of training camp, because he just had that persona. Everyone knew, don't mess with Vince, the nicest guy in the world, but you knew if he flipped that switch, there'd be a problem.
Oh my gosh. The best thing Bill Belichick ever taught you about football, something that you would never think about in a million years that he taught you that you're just lucky to know now.
There's so many, but I think this is one of the most unique stories. It was my rookie year. We're playing the Jets on a Monday night. So we're doing a nighttime walkthrough Sunday night before the game. And he grabs all the corners and he grabs me and he says, hey, when we're running down this sideline, the way the wind pattern is in our stadium going towards the open end, the wind whirls like this. So the ball's going to look like it's going further than what it is, but it's going to hit that wind and it's just going to drop. So when you're running on this side, make sure you turn around and get your head back. And I remember sitting there like, really, dude, the wind pattern? And sure enough, I get a go ball on that side against Braylon Edwards. I turn and then I look back at him and then I remember like what Bill said, I turn my head back, ball drops right in my lap, get an interception. From that point on, there was nothing the guy could tell me that I would be like, nope, I believe in everything. I was drinking the Kool-Aid heavy after that.
I think we just found something. You know how Belichick famously kind of hates meteorologists? It's because he's a better meteorologist than the meteorologist. That's what we just figured out.
He has predicted a lot of different weather things through my 13 years playing there in New England.
Holy moly. All right, last thing. We call it one rep back. You get to redo any play in your career and get to do it over again, do it different. whether that's a penalty, whether that's, oh, this guy got behind me, whether it's just a scheme you didn't see developing on the offensive side of the ball. What do you got?
These are all easy. Super Bowl 52, Zach Ertz catches a slant on me. Would have did it way different. Inside leverage. It was empty formation. They had a back in the backfield. The backfield went opposite side, so it created 4 guys on one side, 1 guy backside. In the NFL, that's a natural. Every time you see that formation, it's usually a slant. Happen fast. If I could get that one play back, I would definitely get that play back and jump the slant. If they double move me, they double move me. But that would definitely be the one play.
All right. Well, the good news is you did a lot of winning in your career, so Patriots fans will forgive you for that one. Devin McCourty, Football Night in America, Westwood 1 starting this Thursday. Thank you so much for coming on This Is Football, man.
Bro, I appreciate you having me.